Hi friends, strangers, internet. My name is EmilyHanhan. I love colorful makeup and colorful language. And I can't help but do these hand motions every time I say colorful makeup. Y'all, we are back with another review. Well, I'm gonna say second impression review for Kaleidos Makeup. If you are new around here, Kaleidos is the first brand that's ever sent me PR. They sent me their last collection and they did indeed send me the Fresh Fantasy collection, including the most adorable suitcase. This is a metal suitcase that everything came in. Just wanted to show that off because it's really cute. It's really cool. They actually sold this and this adorable and giant floppy bow ponytail holder situation. I don't really have the hair for this, but I do have it as decoration. If you are not familiar with Kaleidos, Kaleidos is an indie brand that is based out of Hong Kong, and they are a brand that has done this whole series of Futurism palettes. They are 6-pan palettes. They've had 7 up to now. I bought the first 5 Futurism palettes and I really love them. I think that they are a gorgeous selection of shades and textures, and they have their issues. I have my criticisms about them, but I have a soft spot for the brand. I had it before I ever got PR. But y'all know I'm an honest person. I'm trying my best to be as honest as I can, especially with these PR reviews. So this collection, when it finally got to me, because it had a little bit of a hold up in customs and all of that, I had been seeing some sprinkling of thoughts out there. And I wasn't actively watching any reviews, but thumbnails tell a story. I see you, Tina. I see you, Lauren May Beauty. They tell a story. And to get the too long, didn't read of it all, I do think that these new palettes are different formulas and I'm not as deeply in love with them as I have been with some previous releases. Now let's kind of dive into each product. I'm calling this the first impressions. The main reason why I took some time, I've done a couple of looks with these, but I'm not putting them through the paces quite as much, is because I know Kaleidos products really well to my standard, and I feel like I can see a difference, or I feel like I understand kind of like what I expect them to behave like. So let's talk about these face palettes. Now, Kaleidos has released 3 of these Charisma contour palettes. They have a cool and light, they have a warm and medium, and a warm and deep. So, as is kind of the standard, I don't know why this one came a little torn, but otherwise the packaging is really gorgeous and, in my opinion, very well thought out, because you have some instructions and you have ingredients and kind of fill, shade, and chisel, how they describe it. This is the Cool and Light palette, and inside you have these 3 shades. You have a mirror up here. You have the Cool and Light info on the back. So that's Cool and Light. Let me show you the other 2. So warm and medium. Same style packaging, same information. And I believe the general point of these palettes is that basically they're describing both of these shades as contour, the middle small shade as more of a nose and like eye socket contour versus a face contour, and then this is like a matte highlighting powder. And then warm and deep. I do like how they made the packaging look the same but just slightly different tones. Again, packaging. Oh yes, and they do typically come with that overlay. And that is that color. Let me grab the 3 to show you. Of course I'm not going to be able to use the deepest contour palette. When they asked if they could send it over, I asked for the full collection because I wanted to be able to swatch it out and see the difference, because to my naked eye, I felt like the jump was pretty drastic. I'm going to do some swatches after this that I will have kind of in this video that you'll be able to see as I'm talking, but basically my suspicions are confirmed. So those are the 3 palettes. Again, I will have more straight down footage so you can see it a little bit easier. And so this issue happened with their last release. So their last collection, the Escape Pod collection, or Make Your Escape collection, they released 2 blushes. The artwork on the blushes was fairly insensitive to Black people and people of color. There's lots of information out there about it, but basically they used a lot of imagery that is a little, it felt like a caricature. And then the colors of the blushes inside weren't really suited for deeper skin tone, even though they used those skin tones on the outside in the packaging. Again, I'm not articulating it the best. Legally Black Beauty on Instagram is probably my go-to reference for discussing more about that particular release. They pulled those blushes and they said they are working on kind of reformulating and releasing with a better range. Unfortunately, with this collection, I think they again missed the mark in terms of the way they're labeling them and the amount of releases. Because today, me, somebody who, if you're considering it MAC terms, I'm maybe an NC15. I'm usually one of the fairest yellow or warm-toned foundation shades out there. I used Warm and Medium. Warm and Medium is actually a nice contour bronzer for me. I used, and I didn't film the actual application of this one, but I do have some other application footage that should be playing. I can use this middle tone as a contour all over my face, including my nose and my cheekbones, and this as a bronzer. And if I want, I can use this color. That shouldn't really be, in my opinion. Now the Cool and Light, I can theoretically use it, but it's truly more of a contour palette for me, and that's not really my style. So when you're considering that I can use the Warm and Medium, I would think you would need at least 2 to 3 more shades in this release, or Warm and Medium should have been an in-between between these 2 palettes. So, like, I have so much love for Kaleidos, but I also think that they should be talking with Black people when they're doing these product development. You know, if they don't have Black people working for them, they should be hiring them as freelance to give input in the midst of product development, not once it's already been released, because this is not where it's at. Now, when it comes to the actual performance of the powders, they are quite nice. They seem very finely milled. They blend out well. When I first applied the Warm Medium color, I was applying it over foundation that was not set with any powder, and I definitely felt like it really, you know, stuck down and had a little bit more trouble blending. Today, I lightly powdered, especially the places where I was going to put product like that, and I felt like I had a better result. So that's something to consider. Now, this whole format of having 2 kinds of contours, like, that's not really my style anyway. So as a general thought, this would not, if I'm being honest, this wouldn't have been a product I was going to buy if this collection came out and I wasn't getting PR. So I will use the warm medium. I'm going to pass along the lightest and the deepest to friends who suit those color families. And I like the warm medium, but I'm not clamoring for it. I will also do some comparison swatches of the bronzer and contour and the Midas Dawn palette and compare it to the two lightest Kaleidos palettes. Because I just got this palette, I'm all of a sudden feeling like I now have a lot of bronzers in my life. So we will see kind of how much I use these products and how much I go back towards, like, you know, the Kaleidos palette, the Midas palette, all of those things. Overall, I'm happy generally with the performance of this, but I'm pretty disappointed with the range of colors that Kaleidos has released, especially after the criticism from the blush launch, to be honest. Now, the lip gloss that I got, the Lucid Lip, which they have kind of adjusted their packaging. They've added the Lucid Lip words on the cap, which I think is quite cute. This is Dramatize. I have this on today. I have it on top of a fairly like neutral lip color. I believe it's Finesse from Prapa. This is a nice, like, it looks red in the tube, but it's really just like a very sheer tone. It does have like gold glitter in it. And I was worried when I first swatched this that I would feel those particles, but I really do not. I feel like the Kaleidos Lucid Lip Gloss formula is pretty nice. It's not super thin, it's not oily, but it's also not like a thicker gloss. I would say it's probably on the thinner side, but it's like buildable. It has a little bit of body to it. Maybe you would call it balmy. I'm not usually a fan of glosses described as that, but it's a really nice formula. It looks nice over kind of like bare lips, but I think it's a really beautiful addition over your more neutral toned, particularly like all these fall lip colors I'm thinking of. So I'm happy to have that in my collection. I think that Kaleidos has a lip gloss formula that's just a really nice kind of happy medium of all the different formulas I've tried. Now let's talk about the eyeshadow palettes. So Lunar Lavender and Sashimi City. Straight up, if I knew I wasn't getting PR, I would have for sure bought these two palettes because I have a thing for them. So as per usual, the packaging is just spectacular. The box has a little bit of the holographic detail, and again, it opens up so if you recycle it, it's basically already flat for you. And then this is Lunar Lavender. This packaging, I know, like packaging is only one part of the story, and for a lot of people, they don't care. But the holographic details on this collection, my heart. And when you open up, there's even more holographic detail. And then this is Lunar Lavender. They always come with a piece of plastic that has the name printed on. I always lose that, so that's basically where we're at right now. You have two shimmers. I would consider both duochromes, one more intense than the other, and then 4 mattes. This duochrome is a pretty strong blue to purple shift, and I'm calling this a duochrome because I think of it as like a lavender to golden shift. Then we have this mid-tone purple, this lavender, and these 2 cool tone browns. So this eye has Lunar Lavender. We have the blue duochrome across the lid, and then the more almost pinky purple gold shimmer on the inner corner. I have used the more lilac tone up here and the mid-tone purple out here. I used a tiny bit of the brown down here, but I'm also going to show you another look where I did 2 more looks with the purple palette where I used the browns. So let's talk about positives. First of all, the blue to purple duochrome is absolutely stunning. The second shimmer is nice, but it's a little drier in formula. The blue to purple duochrome is a little bit creamier. They are both pretty flaky, and you definitely want to use glitter glue, in my opinion, to apply them. Here's the other thing, is that they are a sheer formula. So I feel like I think you really need some of the mattes underneath them to kind of make the color more impactful. The mattes in here, I really did kind of struggle with how they applied and how they blended. Today had my best results, and I used this brush only. This is a Refer brush. It's the number 2. It's a packer brush with just a little bit of thickness to it. And I basically just packed on the dark purple all out here. I used the lavender on the edge up here and then all in here. And then I used a little bit of, I believe it was the deepest brown on the lower lash line with the lavender and purple up here. Packing it on over my eye primer, which had not sat down for too terribly long. I used the Smashbox primer today. That really got me the best results. But there is a sheerness to these powders. Like the lightest lavender, I feel like it would look very sheer on top of, basically on deeper skin tones. I don't know, but it was even sheer on me unless I really packed it on. When I first put them on, I put the lavender on first and then I used the purple to deepen. And I felt like, first of all, the lavender was having trouble kind of attaching to itself. And then the purple did sometimes kick away the lavender, or it didn't want to attach to itself. Now, even when I used the browns, this more cool tone brown, I used it, I basically did another kind of like packing on wing shape. And this cool tone brown even had trouble sticking to itself. The deepest brown behaved pretty well, but the cool toned brown kind of looked a bit patchy. And I feel like a color like that could be a really interesting way to deepen up a purple, but I would be afraid to put it on top of a purple from this palette that I already had down, because I feel like they would like either it would knock off the purple that was already there, or the brown, like it just wouldn't behave well. It makes me sad because I don't know if this will be a color story I reach for often. Because of the sheerness in these shimmers, I do find that I want to put on a lot to get the intensity that I want. I get fallout. Now, I don't really care. A lot of times I just leave it. Like today I did my face first and then my eyes. And so I definitely have little glitter specks kind of like all over. I don't really care. My vision is pretty bad. So like even right now I'm like, I don't know. I can kind of sort of see a little purpley here and there, but I don't really care. But unfortunately, for an indie makeup lover, I have a lot of good shimmers in my collection, and I have shimmers in these same colors that I would reach for first. And that is not the case with a lot of other Kaleidos palettes. I reach for the pink and the orange and the VR neon. I reach for the icy lavender and astro pink. Like I reach for a lot of those shimmers over some of my other loose indie shimmers. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case with this palette. So yeah, I just sighed heavy because it's weird being a small YouTuber and getting PR and then realizing that like you gotta tell the truth. So anyway, I know it's not weird to tell the truth, but it's just weird. Life is weird. So yeah, so that is my thoughts on Lunar Lavender. Here's the real honesty. I definitely want to keep this because I want the packaging, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm even considering like playing around with the other Kaleidos palettes I have and using this packaging as just a, you know, an empty magnetic palette basically. So there is that one. Now we have Sashimi City, which is what I have on this eye. Again, packaging is stellar. I love the little details, like the box shape. This is their Futurism 7. And the holographic details on this one are equally, like, delicious. Just so gorgeous. So when I saw this being revealed, my first reaction was, if I was gonna buy a neutral palette, it would be this one. I mean, yes, I bought Cyber Bronze, which is another Kaleidos Futurism palette, which is also a neutral palette. I'm not big on neutrals, but I am big on the tones and textures that Kaleidos does. Now with this palette, I have worked with it twice now. So for this eye, I used these two mattes mostly up here. I will say that this middle tone, that to me I think is going to be much more yellow, really reads more of like, I'm calling it a mac and cheese. I don't dislike it, it's just a disconnect visually of what I would expect. It's not a huge disconnect, but it's just enough that I was like, oh, okay. This salmon color I have out here, and I actually also used it as a blush today, and it performed really nicely. I would generally say the issues that I had with the mattes and the lavender palette, I'm not having with these, which does make sense in a way because I've heard that browns are always easier to produce. The same issue that I've had in a couple of Kaleidos palettes, I still think is happening here. I personally think the two dark browns are far too similar for a 6-pan palette. That's unfortunate. I wish they could have included like a juicier peach, something more like the packaging color, or something in that realm so that you could make it a brighter or a more neutral or a more smoky eye. So those are my matte thoughts. Now the shimmers in this palette, you have the same thing happening that happened in the Lunar Lavender, where one shimmer feels creamier than the other. So the more golden shimmer to me feels creamier than the pink to gold. I believe this is, they said one is a multi-chrome. I feel like they're probably talking about this one, which is what's on my lid, and then I have the golden shimmer on the inner corner. Now again, this more pink to golden shimmer, I think this one is called Pink Ginger. It does apply a little bit more sheer. So I think for a lot of people, that can be a great thing because you can do your traditional matte look and then just apply the shimmer where you want it. And some of your mattes underneath will peek out. Because I love my high impact shimmers, like I would love a little bit more body in these. But the more I look at it on my eye, I'm like, but you are pretty. And I do think that this golden tone, it has like some green happening to it, is also very pretty. And I really want to use it in like a larger placement. I've really only used it as like an inner corner. But I feel like this could be an interesting, this could even maybe be an interesting highlighter or like an all over shadow with just a ton of sparkle. I think that, I still stand by, I do think that this is an interesting neutral palette, and this kind of size and texture variation for a neutral palette would be what I like to see on the market, rather than those giant 15, 18, 24, 35 pan palettes. I am kind of bummed that the mattes in this palette work better than the mattes in the lavender palette, but I am actually pretty excited, especially for these two mattes, because they performed really nicely, and I don't use it often enough, but I do like a nice kind of salmony peach tone. So those are my Kaleidos Fresh Fantasy feelings. I mean, I've said it a couple times now, but I just want to say, oh, I actually didn't say this first. I wanted to say thank you to Kaleidos for sending me this PR. Thank you for listening and being open to honest reviews. I still have a very soft spot for your products. I'm still interested to see what you do moving forward. And I think it's really interesting to see a brand evolve and in that evolution adjust their formulas. I know that people noticed a change in the formula of the Escape Pod palette. I did notice that, but I still found that the performance was top-notch. And I wasn't disappointed. I felt like the shimmers were gorgeous. And I felt like they were doing topper shades and more dimensional shades with more body in that palette. And I think that's just like kind of what I'm looking for. Colorful mattes that work a little easier and behave more than these do in the Lunar Lavender. And a little bit more, some shimmers that maybe have a little bit more base to them in terms of coverage, but still have the dimension and texture that you saw in Escape Pod, that I saw in VR Neon and Electro Turquoise, in Astro Pink, like in all of the Futurism palettes before this. Thank you, Kaleidos, again for this PR. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you for all your support. I would not be getting this PR if y'all didn't support me. And I wanted to let you know, I do have a video planned where I'm going to be swatching the Lunar Lavender and Sashimi City palette and compare it to shadows in my collection, to previous Kaleidos palettes, and to a bunch of singles that I have. If you have your eye on just one or two of those interesting textural shadows, I might be able to help you find it if you don't feel like a whole palette is quite in your wheelhouse. And thank you so much for spending a bit of your day with me. If you bought any of the contour palettes or any of the eyeshadow palettes, let me know how you feel about them in the comments. Do you have your eye on a certain one and you're still debating, you're not sure? Like, let's talk. I am both here to help you embrace your makeup goblin and also maybe help you spend a little bit more reasonably. Okay, maybe not reasonably. I'm not, you know what I'm saying. I'm here for honest reviews. I'm here for makeup goblin, sparkly shadow good times, and all of the in-between. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you are new here, I would love for you to subscribe and follow along with my colorful shenanigans. And hopefully I will see you again real soon. Bye, friends. The Midas contour and bronzer is quite a bit more, it's just completely different tones from the contours from the two palettes. Maybe the bronzer in medium and Dawn are kinda similar. These two. But they're pretty different, I have to say.